Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Inferno cast. This is episode 012, number 12. And today we have a fun topic. Every topic is fun, of course, but this one in particular, we're going to be discussing dormant franchises that we want back. And these are any of the video game franchises that haven't had a game for a while. And I specifically told my wonderful cast and crew, and when I say tell, I specifically not tell, to say like what sort of age range or year range or anything like that. So it'll be fun for me to see what they consider is dormant. And speaking of my wonderful crew, I want to go ahead and introduce Astrimedes. He is a developer and co-owner of Second Place Games. Astrimedes, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Jason the 13th, YouTube channel owner of Jason the 13th. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Not a problem. Glad to be here.
Simbu Darkfang, he is our level 5 grandpa and actor at Basement of the Dead. Simbu, thank you so much for joining us.
It was 4 score and 7 beers ago. Wait, what? Oh, thanks for having me.
Exactly. And friendly reminder, the Basement of the Dead is having their grand opening on Friday the 22nd. So if you are in the Chicagoland area and you want to check that out and you like haunted houses, I absolutely recommend doing so. Again, that's the Chicagoland area, specifically in Aurora, Illinois, Basement of the Dead. Next up, we have Stormrosesky, and she has her Twitch and YouTube channels of Stormrosesky. Storm, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here amongst you all fellow gamer people. Yep.
And always glad to have you here with us. And last but not least, we have my partner in crime, Jamie Owls 87. Jamie Owls, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, I'm glad to be here.
And introducing you last, because I believe that this was a topic that you suggested to me, I think like a month or two ago. But before we get into that topic, just a general broad question. And Storm, you and I are disqualified from answering this.
Ooh.
What sort of experience does the rest of my cast and crew here have with Tetris?
I first played Tetris on Game Boy. 99% of the Tetris I played in my life was on the original spinach green Game Boy. I remember my mom was really into it too. There was sometimes a contest for who could get possession of the Game Boy long enough to beat the other player's scores. But yeah, that's the majority of my experience. Throughout the years, I briefly played one of the like versus Tetris games, multiplayer ones sometime. That would have probably very early 2000s. I played Tetris knockoffs on PC back in the 90s and probably late 80s. Yeah, that pretty much encapsulates my experience.
Nice. And then Jason, I think you said that your mother also played Tetris.
Yes, Tetris on NES was the big one. I also had it for the Game Boy. That was the only video game my mom would play with any of us. Other than that, like that, a couple of the random other games that were Tetris-like. I played not too many. Like it wasn't a die-hard, like you had to follow every single Tetris game that came out, but when it originally was out, played a ton of it.
Nice. Simbu, how about
Yeah.
you? Any Tetris?
Yeah, original Game Boy, little probably the NES when over at, Jason the 13th's house. And of course, some of the Tetris-like games, they kind of like, Dr. Mario.
Mhm.
So, and I downloaded Tetris-like stuff on my phone here and there, and
Yeah, because a lot of times mobile, they're good like little time wasters in case you ever need to do that.
yeah, you got like Candy Crush and Bubble Pop, which are all Tetris-like kind of games.
Jamie Owls, how about you?
I think the only Tetris game I ever played was the one that came out for the 3DS. There was one that came out for the 3DS, and I played that one a lot. And that's it. And then I think a couple that you had on the PlayStation that I tried a couple of times. I wasn't really a big Tetris fan, but now I am because I seem to like a lot more puzzle games now as I gotten older.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny. I of course disqualified Storm and I because this Saturday, this is kind of a preview to the video that got coming out. Storm and I, we played the Game Boy Tetris together for a little over an hour, talked about a little bit of the origins and a little bit of our own memories with it. And we finally settled the dispute, which Tetris out of all because there have been over 490 million sales of Tetris. It's one of the highest selling video game franchises. Storm and I settled which one is the best one. And tune in this Saturday at 10 a.m. Central to find out on Inferno Fox Gaming on YouTube. And again, special thanks to Storm for joining me on that.
You're welcome. It was fun. We need to do another one like that, where we play a game and discuss something.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for all of the joiners and subscribers to Inferno Fox Gaming, that's not going to be the last one that we're going to do. Jamie Owls and I are going to be working on doing a Mario related one. Jason the 13th and I actually did one last year regarding Mega Man, which Mega Man is best between Mega Man's 2, 3, and X. And there is a right answer, and we got that right answer. So you'll want to check that out. And then Astrimedes and I, and then Simbu and I will also be talking about what kind of collabs that we can do together. But moving on to the main topic, and that, of course, again, is dormant franchises that we want back. And since we've all been playing for over 30 years, and we've all got a lot of experience playing games that were out in the 80s, 90s, and aughts, but maybe haven't seen a new entry since, maybe even in the last decade. We're going to go around the group here to see which franchises we want to see new entries for. So what you're listening to is almost 200 years of video game experience right here. So if you ever want to think that you're old, we got 200 years between the six of us. And I'll kick things off. I actually have three, and I'm only going to say one. And Jason the 13th, I would guess you'd be able to I'm going to say mine, and you're going to be like, okay, yep. Besides the obvious clue in my video, if you're watching this on YouTube, my main dormant franchise that I want back is F-Zero, which, of course, it originally released as a launch game for the Super Nintendo in 1991. Series, it does a great job of perpetuating that, that overall sense of speed, which was really amazing when it was on the Super Nintendo. And fun fact about that, there was supposed to be an F-Zero 2 with split screen action, where F-Zero 1 was just on the single screen, but the F-Zero 2 with the split screens got turned into something completely different. A little known series, you guys might have heard of it, Mario Kart. So when you see Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo and how big that series is, you can thank F-Zero. The last entry on mainline consoles, of course, was F-Zero GX in 2003 for the GameCube, and then the last overall entry was on the Game Boy Advance, being F-Zero Climax. So per rumors from like last week, and we've got the Nintendo Direct coming tomorrow. This is being recorded on Wednesday, with the Nintendo Direct September one coming out in a day. I want to see like a new game in this overall series. There's also been rumors, because the leakers confirmed there's going to be something F-Zero, there's going to be something Donkey Kong, and there's going to be something 99. We don't know, like Tetris 99, Pac-Man 99. Pac-Man 99 was discontinued, but something is going to be taking 99's place. One of the rumors is that it might be an F-Zero 99, where you go against 98 other racers. I have no idea how the heck that could work, besides something like Fall Guys, where instead of like bumping, maybe you bump each other off the track, but you loop around, and however many people cross the track, it'll say like, okay, 70 can cross, and then now only 50 can cross, and only 30 can cross. Maybe some sort of like racing F-Zero equivalent.
Maybe a 99 race campaign would maybe be more doable. Than that would be crazy, that many cars at once.
And it's funny because you'd think that 99 cars wouldn't be, but you got to don't forget that F-Zero X was only like one of 5 games on the Nintendo 64 that ran at 60 frames per second. So we talk about frames and everything. It's because the carts are so like pH scale of 10 basic. They are so modeled so simply that it could be possible you could fit 99 of these polygons. Granted, the Switch is not a powerful system, but it's like a PS3 Pro. If a Nintendo 64 can do 60 frames per second with 30 cars, you'd think the Switch could do that, but with 99. Either way,
I'm sure it's doable. It just seems like a nightmare in terms of gameplay to me. Like you said, it'd be more like a kind of Fall Guys situation where it's almost more dopey than like a really good race.
Because like that's another thing with F-Zero is that sense of speed. Like that's its biggest thing.
Right.
To throw in anything else like items or something, it would not be a good fit for this. That's what Mario Kart's for. And I've had to do and I had to make do with Mario Kart on 200cc for my sense of speed. Exactly. That's how I feel. But like, I need my F-Zero fix. I definitely need that. The most likely candidate is going to be this, and it's going to be a remaster because it has been 20 years since it came out. But yeah, that's pretty much like that out of my 3, that's my number 1 Dormant franchise that I want back. I want it. I need it. Hopefully I'll get it tomorrow. So Simbu, let me ask you, Dormant franchises, some of your favorites. So like, which one would you want to have come back?
Well, I would say Fable, but as we all know, Fable is already coming back. It's already in dev. So that's been X'd. But by all technicalities, it is considered a dormant franchise because there is no new entry to the series as of yet.
Yeah.
But I would like to see Micro Machines come back. I really would. With today's abilities and world building, like the Unreal Engine 5.1, things like that. I would love to see them do a new Micro Machines game. Just because of how crazy you really could do, because I mean they do have the Hot Wheels Unleashed or whatever it is, but I still think a Micro Machines game would be fun, racing around a countertop, racing around the bathroom thing, kind of bring back that sentimental, sentimental and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to go on to my next couple of games, but
no, please do, because I was just going to comment. I totally agree with you with the Hot Wheels game. It was surprisingly a really good game, but it wasn't Micro Machines. It didn't have that top down look. It just didn't have that look and that sort of feel.
Right, because when you're racing in Hot Wheels, you're still racing on the orange and blue tracks for the most part.
Yep. Yeah, it still feels like you're on rails kind of in that game. And my biggest problem is the last thing we'll say about this game. Like I was offended at the pricing model of that game. They want you to pay $50-$60 full price and then tons of add-on prices for everything else. Like it almost never goes on sale. I did get it on sale, but anyway, had to say that the game was mentioned.
I enjoyed it only because it came out as a PlayStation Plus game for all PS Plus users. So I was able to get it for free. And of course, a bunch of the free DLC stuff that they gave away. I didn't spend any money on it, but I didn't buy any of the DLC level packs or world packs or whatever. But, for the time I had with the game, I enjoyed it. But again, not a Micro Machines. It, does a decent job of kind of capturing that, but it's still not the same. Another one I would like to see come back is Blitz the League. Last time we saw it was Xbox 360. It was your Longest Yard meets Mortal Kombat meets Madden, which was awesome. It was a lot of fun. I think, if they were to reboot that series and bring it back right about now, time of the year, I think it would probably sell really well because, it's fall football season and you've got spooky season, with blood and guts and gore. And I would love to see what they could do now with the Unreal 5.1. That would be amazing to see what they could do. And then I would say my last one, realistically, I'd like to see Vector Man come back
Really?
from the Genesis.
Interesting choice.
It was a fun game.
I remember
really
finding it
was.
fun too. Yeah.
The music in it was fantastic. 'Cause
Yeah.
It was just Vector Man 1 and 2, right? Weren't they working on a third
think
one for the
so.
Saturn? And then that got canceled?
Could be.
I don't remember. I mean, I was a kid back then, so how much other than seeing it in the store, I didn't really pay too much attention.
So I got two follow-up questions for you, Simbu. One, Fable comes out. Do you get a Series X
No.
or S?
Nope.
That's not a console getter.
Nope. They're, as of right now, again, when you talk money, everything comes down to pricing and real world commitments. I cannot, justify if I were to come into some big money, cool. Maybe I would pick up a Series S or something just so I could play Fable again. However, the other thing is, do I spend the $300 on the Series S, spend the $60, $70 on Fable, play it, and then have all my nostalgic memories ruined?
because of the new
That's-
game and it not
Right.
That's if the game flops, of course.
Well, of course. But again, that's a $400+ gamble right
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
for one game. And I have plenty of other stuff on my PS5 that, I'm not going to miss out if I don't play Starfield. I'm not going to miss out if I don't play Fable.
and the thing too is, even if it flops, like, that doesn't negate any of the fun that you might have with the game,
is
because
true.
that's another good topic that we could touch upon on another day, that games that are critical flops but that we've enjoyed, although that's going to make me think. Like, I really have to think on that.
All I want to know is, Inferno Fox, why is your answer Redfall?
Right.
If I had a Series X or S, no, I probably, well, no, it's funny. I'd say I probably wouldn't enjoy that, but I can't say because I haven't played it. I mean, maybe if I played it, and I could say definitively, but it looks rough, and they're still going to invest that 60 frames per second update. That's still coming. Like, I'm surprised that they're still going to do that. But and then I think I had I Fable, and then your third one. I know I had a question for you regarding that. I'm trying to remember, what was your third one again? Because you said Fable, you said Micro Machines.
I said Micro Machines, Fable, obviously.
And then
Vector
Blitz.
We
Man.
just touched on Vector Man,
Vector
and then
Blitz.
Blitz.
That's
the
it.
league.
What would you do if Blitz came back, but it was a mobile game only?
Pass.
Yeah.
Straight up pass. Unless of course I could play it on something like the Amazon Luna or whatever. Because then, at that point I spend the $60 for the Luna controller to hook up to my TV, download the Luna app on my TV, and then I play it on my TV. So I'm still playing on a big screen, which was part of the big draw for Blitz the League, or any sports game, is the nice big screen. You feel like you're in the stadium.
And it's funny too, because like, for mobile gaming, Apple is still trying to push the whole mobile gaming is valid by with the Apple iPhone event that came out, I think it was yesterday, where they were showing games like Death Stranding and Resident Evil 4 Remake on the iPhone 15 Pro. And like, okay, it's cool where you see screenshots, just the idea of that appearing, but like, if you look at a screenshot of Resident Evil 4, for example, it shows the cell phone screen literally being this big, and it's a thing. Well, you can see a picture of my lovely partner, but like
I
it's
see a
like
lock
that
screen.
big, and it's like, okay, you like all of this retail space here and this space here is just like buttons. So like they're clear
Mhm.
buttons, but they're still buttons. So you're going to be tapping and like obscuring yourself half the time. And you're again lacking. And we lost Astrimedes. He'll come back. He'll jump back in with us. I might have
Unless, of
offended him
course,
with offending his mobile self.
of course that unless of course you were to connect a controller to your phone, because then a lot of that tends to go away. I've seen that with when I used to play Fortnite mobile, you know, when I had nothing to do when I was working escape rooms, like a lot of those buttons would go away because it would register the controller device.
And it's also a thing too where rumors have been talking about whether or not Apple's going to do another possible run at their own sort of like console, as it were, a mix of an actual console itself and mobile gaming. But
Well, isn't that what the iPhone 15 supposed to be? Because they were saying that it's supposed to be able to run at 60 frames per second and look just like a PS5 or a Series X.
Yeah, I
So-
think they were showing what Resident Evil 5 running on there, and I heard unverified commentary from someone. The UI takes up 3/4 of the touchscreen.
Yeah, but again, you're looking at from this to this, and yeah, cool. Like Disney Speedstormers, I'll play on a screen like this. Resident Evil 9, I want this screen.
And so imagine that just like that the PlayStation Portal, where it's running handheld, but it's using the PS5 to power it. I would think that Apple would figure a way to do the opposite, where you use your Apple TV to have the phone power and send the data from the phone to the Apple TV to play on the TV itself. That would be my guess on how they're going to do it. But like how appealing is that, Simbu? Like to me, that I'm like you,
It's
because
not.
you still got that screen, but then it's going to be like this. Is it going to be able to upscale so well?
If and
Bless you, Jason.
I know this is completely off topic, but we've gone off on tangent here. But if Apple were to really push for mobile game for a gaming platform kind of thing, they honestly should fall in line with Amazon, with what Amazon did with Luna. Do the same
Or
thing.
they could take a very like kind of acknowledgement of, if you're going to be on a phone, you need to make games that are mobile platform friendly and almost look like it more like at early Nintendo Game Boy games and stuff in particular, like more condensed experiences and stuff like that. I feel like that would almost be a better bet. Like just not the other approach. I don't know. I'm very jaded to the all the application platforms for everything, for a lot of these things, particularly when you're depending on like an Apple TV or something like that to be your actual platform. I guess I should say I'm jaded towards dedicated devices that companies have to support and then will inevitably let fall out of support, with Google being the biggest offender.
Well, and of course, that's why I said, like, if they fall in line with the Amazon Luna sort of style, with the, you buy the Apple game controller and it hooks to your TV and you download the Apple gaming app for the TV, for your smart TV, and then you play from there.
Yeah, because you think that probably a couple million at least have sold of Luna, whereas you compare the Apple iPhones, you got tens to hundreds of millions of iPhones that have sold, to where you have a device that does exactly what Simbu had said. And yeah, the iPhone 10, 11, or 12 probably is not going to run Resident Evil 4 Remake. It'll run the original Resident Evil 4, which did go on the Apple store, I think like 10 years ago or something. But like you could still send it to Apple TV and get that. But I digress. We're kind of getting a little off topic, and now I'm going to call on somebody who's been a little quiet. Storm, Storm, dormant video game franchises. I'm picking on you. What are some of your dormant video game franchises that you want back?
Banjo and Kazooie would
Mhm.
be a good one. That was fun on the original PlayStation when we had it. Or
Nintendo 64 was what Banjo was.
yes, Nintendo 64. Thank you. That's why my hesitation, because I couldn't remember right then which platform it was on. Because it's also been like put on the emulator, not the emulator, but the Nintendo Online recently. Guitar Hero, I would love to see back. And you know what? Friday the 13th, the one that just went bye-bye, because I absolutely love that game. So if they could come back and work on their issues and bring it back and get over all the copyright stuff and you know, it's a daydream. It's never going to happen, probably.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
Storm,
would
that's
absolutely love to see that one back.
A sequel to the NES Friday the 13th is probably more likely than
Yeah,
a
yeah,
sequel to the
probably.
PC.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Unfortunately, Gunn has came out publicly and stated that they're done with F-13.
Yeah.
Whatever state it's in now, it's whatever it is until December next year, and then the game goes goodbye.
Yep, I know. So that is my ultimate one, other than the Guitar Hero, which Frequency is another one that I wish they would bring back.
Yeah,
Because
because
Frequency was good.
they had Amplitude that released for the PS4 like four or 5 years ago, but I liked Amplitude because it was a mix of like the homegrown artists and like popular songs, but this Amplitude took what went the other way and just did homegrown artists, and just for whatever reason it wasn't as good.
Yeah, I like having songs on there that you recognize a little bit. I mean, I don't mind having new stuff and getting exposed to it, but you know, I like having some old stuff to get familiar with, and you know, that may be easier to play and make you want to fool around with the other things. But yeah, those were
It's funny you brought up Banjo Kazooie, because there's a game on the PlayStation Store right now. I can't think of the name, but the logo, the character names are green and yellow, and it's
Ukulele?
no, I don't think so. But
that may have been like a PC, I think, like, or something, right? That was like a knockoff / indirect follow-up to Banjo Kazooie.
Right.
That name is
yeah,
familiar.
because I saw the name, the title of the game, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, that reminds me of Banjo Kazooie, just because of the font and the.
Because Ukulele is like a spiritual successor to Banjo, because they have like a 2D one and a 3D one. And Jamie Owls, you played one of the Ukulele ones. I think Ukulele and the Impossible Lair.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I was playing the second game. That's why I was kind of lost as to like the gameplay. And yeah, so I didn't realize I was playing the second one, and I never had the first one.
Interesting. But yeah, so like that could be a good follow-up, because it's one of the ones where it had a last game that kind of killed the franchise, and that being Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, which was a 360 game, Xbox 360, and instead of being a fun platformer with the bear and the bird, you have to like build planes and some kind of crazy crap like that. And I never played it, but I heard it wasn't good compared to Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. Those are really good choices. And the Guitar Hero one, I recommend checking out our episode of the Inferno cast number 007, where we talk about in length the wonderful plastic instruments.
Yes, I know there is Rocksmith for the PC, which you can hook up your real guitar to and play, and you know, they have real songs by real artists, and there are a couple of great streamers that I watch that play that. So I know games like those exist, but we don't have it for. I want Guitar Hero for the PS5. That'd be nice. If you can't give me Friday the 13th, yes, exactly. If y'all take it away Friday the 13th, which I completely get, and I'm on Gunn's side with the whole thing, it's all stupid. but I can dream. Guitar Hero would be really nice because yeah, I want buttons. There you go.
Before Jamie Owls, I ask you for yours, I'm gonna actually give my second one, and obviously that's the other game that you see right here. I want a new Star Fox, which that one also released first on the SNES in 1993 and was one of the first games to actually have the Super FX chip, which allowed awesome like 5 to 10 frame per second gameplay. I mean, it was state of the art for the time, but it was 3D, so it looked good. But it was still fun. It was a great on the rails space shooter. And then this is the latest entry or the last entry, which is for, of course, for the Wii U. That's Star Fox Zero, and wasn't great, admittedly, because you had to basically control. I'm trying to grab my controller here, where you got the controller, but you have to use the big tablet one, and you're like this, looking down at the controls to view from the cockpit to aim, but you also have to go watch the screen to move around the ship. And so you're kind of like this, you look down, up, and those that really got into it really swore by how ingenious a system it was, but it still doesn't change the fact that the graphics were mid. There are wings, the ships themselves, of course, were only like I think 2/3 of the levels at best. They diversify too much with non-ship based levels, and it was yet another reboot, because the Super Nintendo Star Fox 1 and 2 were a thing, and then it got rebooted for Star Fox 64. Then they had a couple sequels, and then it got rebooted for Star Fox. I was like, enough with the reboots. This isn't Mortal Kombat. So I want to see a new entry to continue either the Super Nintendo or Nintendo 64 storyline, and just avoid that, and let's just take away all the non-R-Wing ship levels. Let's just have the ship and just either in the air or in space. It's a great game on its own. It's arcade like too, because you could go from the beginning to the end in like an hour.
Under the sea.
Okay. Jamie Owls, what are some of your dormant franchises that you would like to see come back?
I want to say Parasite Eve. The first game, it came out in 1998 for the PlayStation. And I believe there's 3 total games of the franchise. I only played the first one, which I really enjoyed, and it's been a very long time. I would be very happy if they came back with a remastered version. Another one would be Donkey Kong, because I believe the last Donkey Kong that came out was Tropical Freeze, and that was a few years back. And I know I've been hearing rumors of a potential new Donkey Kong coming out, so knock on wood, hopefully we hear something soon on the Nintendo Direct, hopefully. And my third choice, I really enjoyed the Uncharted series. There are 4 games, and I know the story for Nathan Drake is completed. A Thief's End was the last game. But I have 2 theories. If they were to come back, there's a character in the game named Chloe. I thought about if they were to come back and you can play as Chloe, where she could go on these adventures, or, and I know this is going to be a spoiler for those who have never played Uncharted, but the last game, it shows like a little at the very end, it turns out Nathan and his wife, I forgot her name, they have Elena, yes, thank you. They have a daughter named Cassie, and then my thought would be if they were to continue Uncharted, that they would use Cassie as like the next Nathan Drake, and then Chloe can be like the mentor, kind of like how Sully was to Nathan Drake. So that would be my dream.
It's funny too, because for the Parasite Eve one, it's yet another example like Star Fox, where Parasite Eve 3, I think it's called The Third Birthday, apparently wasn't as good as the first two that were on the PS1, and that one is absolutely apt for a remake or a remaster. Square Enix has been doing remasters like crazy.
That will look amazing if they remastered it.
Absolutely. I would love to see how that would look. That's sort of like not Resident Evil, but kind of vibe.
I would say so, yeah.
And in New York City, like it would just fit so well. And if they really put the money into it, it would look great. And I'm with you on the Uncharted series.
Yeah.
Problem with Parasite Eve is it's going to come down to how big of a following does it actually have.
Yep. And whether or not,
Because
if it doesn't have a following, how many new people they can get into the series. Is it going to have that sort of look to be able to attract new people into it?
Was Parasite Eve also Capcom?
I think it's Square Enix.
It's Square Enix, yeah.
Okay. Then maybe they could maybe you bring that up at a time when people don't like the newest Resident Evil game. Which there's like a 60-40 chance when every Resident Evil comes out that's the case. Yep. I think.
Well, as long as they keep Resident Evil to what made Resident Evil so much fun, and that was survival horror, I don't think they're going to have much of a problem going forward with the RE series. Because I mean, look, they went 4, 5, and 6. 4 was, a lot of people love 4. 5 and 6 started tapering off. So what did they do when they brought 7 back? It went back to survival horror, pure survival horror.
And what a hell of a what a hell of a renaissance for Resident Evil. And RE9 is looking to be exactly the same way. And Jamie, I was telling you about RE9, right? Where leaks were saying it was going to be was it a Western or something?
Yeah. It's supposed to be like a Western American like ghost town or something.
That's come on, that's awesome.
That's fun.
Like that is going to be a great interesting setting, because again, with it being a ghost town, there's a lot of open ground. So you generally in a ghost town, even if you have never been to a ghost town before, or a Wild West, reenactment place, it's not very claustrophobic. Like a castle and the grounds, like it's very open. Like, think, I don't know, Hogwarts Legacy. Once you get out into the world, it's pretty open. Like it's just pretty open. So it'll be interesting to see if they do a Midwest ghost, Wild West ghost town. It'll be interesting to see how they claustrophobify the expansive, wide open areas.
Yeah, and even how they can make wide open areas terrifying enough, because RE8 did that a little bit, if I remember. Jamie Ellis, you playing that with like some of the village scenes and everything, but obviously the probably scariest part of RE8 was the Lady Dimitrescu and her mansion of delight.
I really like that part. There's just something about haunted houses and exploring. I don't know, I'm weird.
And like Parasite Eve could capture that sort of scary vibe, probably leaning more into how RE4 was with the action, the action horror aspect. It's definitely viable for that. And yeah. Astrimedes, how about you? What Dormant franchises do you want back?
Well, Twisted Metal is always one I think first. I feel like about every year or so lately, I look and see if there's a new Twisted Metal game being made. My most recent check before this episode still seems to be saying no from anything I can see online, but I can't help but think if the series does even moderately well, like that maybe that would kind of prompt a new game to be made, which is always a crapshoot, because with Twisted Metal, I think it comes down to, like they've switched teams a few times throughout the games. We've had very different feel from in Twisted Metal Black, where it feels like you're driving a giant oil tanker that can accelerate from 0 to 100 in less than a second, to like kind of like wackier, weirder control Twisted Metal 2, to like kind of clunky, weird, you can flip over, but you magically pop back over again for the first time in the series, where it was done pretty awkwardly in Twisted Metal 3. I think it's very possible and almost inevitable another Twisted Metal game does come out at some time, especially because it's Sony, it's their IP. So like they're not going anywhere. If there's any interest in the series, I think like they would roll the dice on another Twisted Metal game. So that's one that often comes to mind. Kind of a little bit older one, Golden Axe. I really loved the particularly Golden Axe 2 arcade game, but I also liked on Genesis Golden Axe and Golden Axe 2, and only in emulation I've seen Golden Axe 3 on Genesis, which is kind of more of the same, but sort of like a bit kind of more highly realized or something. But yeah, I'd be really curious to see a Golden Axe. And I had to look up, what the last game was. I figured there was a sad last game I didn't know about, and sure enough, there is. There was one on, apparently came out for the Xbox 360 and PS3. It was a 3D action game, so it's the kind of textbook failed in the conversion from 2D to 3D sort of example. 44 and 45 Metacritic scores. So that one seems like a pretty solid example. That being said, I do think you could totally do 3D with Golden Axe. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with turning it into a 3D game. I suspect they just got it wrong in that other game, whatever they did. But I think particularly if you just had like really different kind of feeling characters, and I feel like there's still a kind of like unrealized niche. You have seen this a little bit. There have been a few games that sort of scratch a little bit this itch, but I feel like the way you can do modern beat 'em up side scrolling games like that are interesting is to basically make them more like fighting games, essentially. You give more like you're already sort of at that fighting game kind of like zoom level. You have a lot of like sprite detail. You can do stuff like clearly show what kind of martial art moves type things people are doing. So I think there's a lot of room to improve games like that. And I think Golden Axe being like one of the flagship old school beat 'em up games, it would be cool to see like a good new version of that. I have like two more, RC Pro-Am / Rock and Roll Racing, and follow up to last week. In the interim, I did have a chance to check out RC Pro-Am 2 on the NES, and I realized I did play this many, many years ago, only kind of briefly checking it out, never having played it when I was younger in an emulation scenario. But you were right. RC Pro-Am 2 is in fact a pretty good, just direct improvement on RC Pro-Am 1. But really, the handling stuff feels almost the same, and I think like like a game like that or Rock and Roll Racing, take your pick, it's the same game basically. A follow-up to one of those that was a little more modern and somehow just as fun. Not that there haven't been a lot of racing games and stuff, but one in that sort of like particular niche where you have like a single player, like upgradey, almost like car RPG kind of thing, almost is sort of like what RC Pro-Am 2 and Rock and Roll Racing kind of start to feel like in particular, which is fun. It's a great game loop. So I think there's a ton of potential there for that. And then one I'm surprised I haven't heard mentioned yet, and Inferno Fox, you will probably mention, is Castlevania. I'd like to see a new Castlevania game, more in the vein of the 2D games than the Lords of Shadow games.
Yeah, it's kind of going back to your Golden Axe. The failed game in the aughts was around the time where you had Japanese developers trying to do edgelord looking type games to appeal to the Western market, and you get games like that Golden Axe game or Bionic Commando, where like you said, it's the failed 3D upres to classic 2D or Rygar for the PS2. That's another one where it didn't succeed to try and bring these old entries and whatnot to a new light, and it doesn't.
I didn't know there had been a new Rygar. I loved Rygar. Yes, new as in new. By new, I mean later than NES generation.
Because
But,
more time
yeah.
has occurred between when the PS2 Rygar and now versus Rygar from 1987 and the PS2 release. So in case you're feeling old, there you go.
Wow.
But
Well, look at another game that just failed not long ago. They tried to bring back Gauntlet.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
Tried to recapture Gauntlet, and it did.
and that hurts because Astrimedes, you had even commented like that was didn't you say that was a really
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, like Gauntlet 2 on the NES was good. And like I feel like the Gauntlet games, there was kind of a general downslide of quality. Like every 3D entry, like with what was it, Dark Legend or something like that that came out on like maybe PS2, PS1, maybe, I don't even remember.
Yeah, like
But
I remember
think,
that on the Nintendo 64. Now that you
yeah,
mention
okay,
it.
so it must have been PlayStation era, would have been how I played it probably.
Oh,
But yeah,
repressed memories.
that was the last one that anyone thought was like any fun at all. And even that one I thought was a definite drop in fun from all the earlier games. There was, actually there was a PC game Gauntlet that I'm remembering now that was made by the same indie developer studio that made Magica, I want to say. And that Gauntlet was actually kind of all right. It wasn't great, but I feel like it was one of the better attempts I'd seen. It actually had while it was technically 3D, it was zoomed out, top down view to the point where it basically played much more like the kind of like old school games in terms of like sort of amount of enemies that could be around and that kind of thing on screen at once anyway.
One last question about Golden Axe before you hit us with your last one. Would you be opposed to a Streets of Rage 4 type revival of Golden Axe?
No, not at all. I think that'd be perfect too. One of the things one of the ones I would have said if I didn't know this game came out relatively recently, again, sort of a follow-up to last week's talk about NES generation, is Double Dragon. I did see that, but yeah, I think that would work great. I mean, I think it's interesting because like the Double Dragon game, it seems sort of leans into being like a bit cheesy sort of on purpose, and maybe that's part of your question, if that would be okay. Like I think that would be fine, but like the dark fantasy nerd in me would rather see a more quote unquote serious version of if they did choose to do that. That being said, if the gameplay was fun, I would have absolutely no problem playing whatever take on it.
Yeah, because Streets of Rage 4 and TMNT Shredder's Revenge, being revivals of these old type of style of play, really do a good job of capturing that same feeling. So you got to imagine if they brought Golden Axe back, it would be in that style. So your last game, wait, was that
it was Castlevania.
Okay.
Yep, that was the last one. And yeah, I was expecting you to probably have more to say on that, but yeah, long story short, Castlevania, I'd like to see a much more of a 2D style game. And I actually loved Castlevania 3 on the NES. I only rented it. It was one of those games we rented a bunch of times. And I thought, to me, that one still maybe was like, maybe just through nostalgia partially, but that felt like one of the more fun Castlevanias. Also, because I'm a sucker for just sort of like different characters that play differently.
Yeah, I beat that for the first time without cheesing with save states like a couple years ago, and that's still not as hard as the first Castlevania, but it's hard. Jason the 13th, last but not least, dormant franchises.
Well, we touched on a few that I'd like to see are back already, which we might get a Donkey Kong. I'd love to see the Twisted Metal, but my main three that I actually picked up for this. So I'd like to, for the first one, Mega Man Legends in particular. Not just a regular Mega Man game. I'd love to see the third Mega Man Legends finally show up. Since it was being developed and then got canceled along with a couple other ones. But that would be my first choice for Dormant series. I'd like to see Vandal Hearts from the PlayStation era come back. If we do in like their generation, yeah, that probably will be on my favorites list for their generation of games too. Vandal Hearts is probably the game that got me into like the tactics type of games. Vandal
Very
Hearts
Disgaea
2.
like.
Yes, it is. Yep. Vandal Hearts 2, they changed too much and it didn't feel as good as the first one. So I think that's what killed that series. But if they brought it back to like how the first one plays, I think it would be a great tactics game again. And then my last one is kind of a shocker because I actually had a Dreamcast, not very many games, but Evolution. I had both the first one and the sequel of Evolution on the Dreamcast. I'd love to see Sega put out a new Evolution game.
Didn't they wrap that up with a movie of the same name,
No.
Evolution? Sean William
Nope.
Scott and Orlando Jordan.
Oh no. Not even close to the Evolution game.
What was
Wait,
Evolution?
I've seen-
I'm not familiar.
I was gonna say, I don't know how much it'll come in. That's
there it is.
Yeah, that's the case for the first game.
Evolution, the World of Sacred Device.
It literally kind of played like the Mega Man Legends games.
I see. Okay.
I don't know what exactly you call it. Kind of like a dungeon crawling more than like level by level type stuff. But if you ever saw the Mega Man Legends games, it played kind of like that. Those would be like my picks for series to come back.
And it's a shame too, because Mega Man Legends 3 got like 65% of the way through production, and then Kaiji Inafune, I don't know, he got too big for his own britches, and that leaves Capcom, and then Capcom, they're all angry, hurt, and they throw out all of his projects. It's funny, the production teams were ready to continue Mega Man Legends 3, Mega Man Universe, and then there was another Mega Man game I'm trying to remember that they were ready to continue all three of them, but the Capcom said, nope, the main guy is gone. We're not continuing this. And
I wonder if there's something else with the contracts and stuff that if they were to do a Mega Man game that he could come back and do like sue or something like that in there. Who knows?
They did do Mega Man 11 without Kaiji Inafune, and
that is true.
It is the best-selling Mega Man game ever, which is really odd to think.
Yeah,
I was just
gonna say, I would say that comes down to the copyright
maybe
law, contracts and write-ups. Like, yes, they have copyright for Mega Man, so they can do Mega Man, but they may not have. But he may have copyright to Mega Man Legends. And if he has copyright to Mega Man Legends, they can't produce a third game because it would be copyright infringement, quote unquote, on the name itself.
I would think you would think that, except Kaiji Inafune made it a point to make a Mega Man like game, not using the Mega Man game, to which that became the absolutely wonderful Mighty Number 9. I mean, that game was absolute perfection. There was nothing wrong with the production cycle, and the game itself is perfect. It's even better than Mega Man 2, right? but no, I see what you're saying. Usually there could be limitations with like offshoots and everything like that, so that's very possible. But Mega Man himself, him appearing in Mega Man 11, Super Smash Brothers, the last games, and then the current one, as well as other offshoots, it's kind of sort of fly in the face of that, especially the fact that you got all the Mega Man collections, Legacy collections 1 and 2, X 1 and 2, Mega Man Zero collection, and then the newly released Mega Man Battle Networks. These are old games, but they're being re-released. So whatever deal that Inafune owns or property wise, we can rest assured he's made a good amount of residuals. I would hope he made residuals, because if he's
clearly Capcom owns the IP, one way or another.
So I'm hoping Inafune gets some sort of residuals for making one of our at least Jason out, one of our favorite video game characters. And you said Vandal Hearts, right?
Yes, Vandal Hearts for PlayStation. That was the tactic games that got me into like Disgaea and even Final Fantasy Tactics, and pretty much Fire Emblem, which I haven't even played much Fire Emblems. Which is funny.
Was that the one in Ivalice? Like Tactics was Final Fantasy Tactics?
Yeah, it is a tactics game. I don't know if let's see if I could Google it real quick.
Yes, because I know it's one of the tactics. There's a number of games in
Yep.
the world of Evil. It is
Uh,
okay. Well, while you're kind of doing that, and I know that they're doing a remake of Final Fantasy Tactics itself, and they've done one of Tactics Ogre. So Vandal Hearts, I'm assuming that's Square Enix.
That's Konami.
Oh, well then no. Yeah. Nope.
It
Definitely
is
not.
actually Konami.
But it's not impossible them bringing that back, because they're bringing a whole bunch of Konami properties back, like Suikoden. Suikoden, they're remastering the first two. Sucks that it got pushed to 2024, but at least it's something. Just kind of rounding out the overall discussion. I'll throw my last one out there, and I just want a new turn-based Final Fantasy game. Yeah, I'm good about adapting and playing the Western focused ones and the action ones, and I know that there's the whole thing about the teams at Square Enix kind of crapping on the old turn-based stuff, but if Baldur's Gate is any sort of indicator, there is a market for turn-based games. I think we've talked about it here in the podcast before. And then stuff like the Square Enix Team Asano HD 2D games like Octopath Travelers 1 and 2, Triangle Strategy, and then the Live Alive remake, and finally the HD remake of Dragon Quest 3. Come on, Square Enix. Final Fantasy 17, make it turn-based. The last one was Final Fantasy 10 back in 2001, and yeah, they're remaking Final Fantasies 9 and 10, and it's going to look good and be turn-based, but it's going to be the same game. I would love a new one like that. So
they should just release two at once. One that's a traditional turn-based 2D. Why not? It's a 3D new school Final Fantasy.
Funny thing is, they did that with Final Fantasy 9 and Final Fantasy 10, like 1 year, one right after the other.
Oh, there's only 1 year separating those. Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting.
Because they had totally different teams working on both games, and
I think 9 was the last one I played. Yeah, 9 was the one that was a little more harkening back to the early games, right?
Yep.
So it can be, even with 16 was a good game. It's fine, but I'm old and I want a turn-based Final Fantasy, especially because they're turning Dragon Quest supposedly into an action RPG. So
oh boy,
oh no.
For all of my all of our listeners here, I'm rolling my eyes. I'm rolling my eyes at the idea of Dragon Quest turning action RPG. But so that's pretty much our dormant franchises that we want to see come back. So but make sure you let us know if you're following us on YouTube, let us know in the comments section what dormant franchises that you guys want to see back, because we're really curious and want to strike up a conversation. And just want to say once again, thank you for everybody here for joining us. Going again to the pre-topic question, again, coming up this Saturday is Stormrosesky's and myself's discussion about Tetris, where we decide which version of Tetris is best. We have it down to a science. We have the beakers and we're pouring all the liquids. We've got the answer, which one's the best. So make sure you check us out for that. And again, big thank you to everyone who has joined us. And of course, Stormrosesky. You can find her at Twitch and YouTube of Stormrosesky. Storm, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And before we go, there was a game that used to be on my list and it happily came off my list this year, and it is due out in October. And that would have been the Super Mario RPG. Since we're getting a nice remake of that already. So it was on my list, but gladly got taken off. So there you go.
Yeah, and that's one where you got Paper Mario series for RPGs. You got the Mario and Luigi saga for RPGs. And Mario and Luigi died because the company Alpha Dream died. And Paper Mario died because that one, it doesn't have as many RPG mechanics. And it's just not like the same. A lot of battles became kind of literally useless. If you ever played Paper Mario 3D Sticker Star, I think it is, on 3DS, and then the Switch one, you just have to avoid back. I'm totally with you, Storm. Like, I'm so glad to have that back, and I'm really interested to see what they're adding, and maybe we'll see that tomorrow in the Nintendo Direct.
Yes.
Also, Jason the 13th of the YouTube channel, Jason the 13th. Thank you so much for joining us.
Not a problem.
You got
Hopefully.
any new content planned coming up for your...
I need to get back to Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, but I also am planning on recording the DLC for Pokemon that just came out today. I haven't gotten to touch it yet.
Excellent. Definitely looking forward to catching a lot of that. Storm, did you have any content coming up?
It's still working on things. Yeah, it's been slow going since school has started and doing more teaching or subbing. So yeah, and getting
Real
sick
life
in between
problems.
there. Yeah. And getting sick and then my better half being sick on top of that. So yeah, real life has gotten in the way of doing anything, but soon, hopefully.
I hear you there. Astrimedes, of course, you can find him at Second Place Games, that he is a developer and co-owner of said game company. Astrimedes, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here and take time away from the re-release of my 2016 mobile game.
Once he does re-release that, we'll make sure to include a link to that in the description of YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music, where you can find us. And Simbu Darkfang, you can find him at Basement of the Dead. That again is Basement of the Dead, located in Aurora, Illinois. If you're in the Chicagoland area, I recommend checking that out for a good haunted experience. Opening day being September 22nd. Simbu, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, it's always a great time. And the beta is finally over. The PS5 now has a mute beep function for turn on, turn off, and restart, or put into rest mode. You can also high, medium, or low volume that beep if you still want it on. So that's kind of nice. And then I just have one more game real quick. I thought of it real fast. Star Wars, The Force Unleashed. I want the third one. Even though I know Starkiller's dead, I still want the third one. Bring him back as a Force Ghost. Let's do it.
Star killed.
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one. Oh man. Jamie Owls. Last but not least, Jamie Owls, my partner and partner in crime. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry, I know we're wrapping up, but I just have another game too. So I like to see another Tomb Raider. I think it was the beginning of this year they made an announcement that they're in the works, but I like the idea of the Lara Croft that they used in the last 3 games, that storyline, to where they still use her, and then the next game would be kind of like bringing back the first 3 games to bring that story back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so the first 3 on the PS1 sort of bridging the reboot into the first 3 of the PS1 games. Maybe have a bridge game to bridge that Lara from the PS1 series to the Lara that was rebooted.
Exactly. That's
only if she looks like triangles.
It'd be funny if they had like a mod or like a DLC that you could just mod her to look like that. So that's a good one. Alrighty, everybody, thank you again for joining us, of course, with our lovely audience. Make sure you check us out for our next week's video podcast, which will be back to Tuesday. Alrighty, everyone have a great night.